everyone, welcome to today's video where we will analyze a very nice game from the recently concluded Chess Olympiad in Budapest. The game was between Valentin Dragnev, who was white, and Magnus Carlsen, who played black. This was the match between Austria and Norway. So Magnus starts with d6, which is invitation to a Pirc defense, but it quickly transposes to the Philidor defense. Now we see a rapid development of pieces. We will not comment on the opening that much. Now Magnus changed the pawn structure in the center. The queen gets centralized, but okay, sometimes later it can be an object of an attack. The bishop is moved, stepping away to open the file for the rook, and later it might come to g6. Like in Fianchetto. Of course, white immediately takes aim on the queen that is positioned on c7. This is all natural. And now this move is very interesting. This maneuver wants to press on the knight on f6, and if white is allowed to take, black has to break the pawn structure and recapture with the pawn. It is not something that is really concerning Magnus, as we will see later. I would be very afraid of having such structure, but Magnus is not. So he plays rook e6, okay, if white takes, he can maybe recapture with the rook, but white takes a knight on e5. And now Magnus takes with the rook, which really surprised me. I would take with the pawn without thinking too much. So it's re-establishing the pawn in the center. It earns a tempo on the queen, and it just looks so natural to me as a patzer. But Magnus has a different opinion. And this is just a normal position where white is aiming to occupy the b6 square. That's all good. Just be careful not to take with the queen on a5. We see how the evil bar jumped immediately. The point is that now the queen is under the X-ray from this rook, and if we take the knight on f6 now, the bishop will be left without protection, so he can recapture, for example, with the rook, and now knight b6 with a double attack or discovered attack, attacking the queen and the bishop on this cell. So white wins material here. We have to be careful about that. Okay, so he recaptures with the rook, and he allows white to take on f6. So what would happen if white takes on f6? Recapture with the pawn, of course. Now these pawns are kind of broken. But luckily for black, the important point is that he has this bishop. As long as he has this bishop that is able to come on g7, his king will be relatively safe. So now here what can white do? He can try immediately f4. White will take on a5, rook a5, queen a5, queen f6, and this is just a normal regular position, playable for both sides. Just be careful here on rook a5 not to play queen f6 first, because this is losing for white. If you want, you can pause the video for a couple of seconds and try to find a solution. I hope you found a solution, so let me show you. Rook takes on a1. The queen is pushed back, for example, to h4. And now this check is very dangerous. Black wins material with it. Now the two pieces are under attack. There is no good defense here. The other possibility was, for example, takes on f6, recaptures. Now instead of f4, I can also play rook to d1, just leaving this pawn as it is. Take with the rook, queen f6, rook e8, and again just a normal position for both sides. So this was playable, but in the game white did not take on f6. He played b4 instead. b4 to strengthen the pawn on a5, so not to think that much about it. Magnus played rook to e8. He's still, teasing white to take on f6, and I think this was the last moment for him to do that. Just play it like this somehow. White should be careful not to take on f6, because then bishop comes to g7 and this knight will drop. The diagonal is very weak, so that's something to think about. Maybe that's why the computer did not like b4 move earlier. But in the game, white did not take on f6. He played bishop g3 back, which computer strongly disagrees with, because now this retreat is met with a very powerful move c5, and this is allowing black to relieve himself of all the pressure that white must maybe putting on his pieces. The point is that if you take the pawn on c5, this is very bad, because now the heavy pieces are pressing down the c file, and also a5 pawn is weak. So if you protect the knight somehow, he will not even bother to play rook on c8. He will just simply take the pawn on a5. So c5, white retreats the queen to d1. He's hoping to earn the tempo, while this rook hopefully retreats to e6. Maybe he was expecting this. And now that he can take on c5, and there is no longer rook c5. So this would be really good for him. Unfortunately, Magnus did not even blink here. He did not retreat the rook, but he took on b4 instead. So he just sacrificed the exchange. White had no other choice but to take, and otherwise his position is very weak. If he moves the knight, a5 will fall as well. c2 is weak, so not really a matter of choice for white. And now knight d5. It's also the only move, the only practical chance is to create this passed pawn and try to do something with it. If he recaptures with the queen, then bishop e6 is very solid for black, so he's very stable and he has a solid advantage here. So it's better just to try to create a passed pawn on as something that you have to create counterplay with. Magnus played e4. This is a rather sharp move. He's not really looking to stabilize. He's still looking for some disbalances in the position. Instead of e4, bishop d6 was stable move. Just block this passed pawn and reshuffle your pieces to better positions. I like this bishop g4 because black has the pair of bishops, which is a very strong compensation for the exchange. So white is trying to exchange one of the bishops, but of course Magnus is rejecting that. So f5 is a good move. Also protecting this pawn. This is a great attempt by white. He's kind of sacrificing this pawn just to get some counterplay. Black cannot really take it now because, for example, if he takes with the bishop, it is strongly met with queen d5, and this check is very annoying. And now black pieces will be all tangled down on the d file. What can you do now? How to protect your pieces? The only way is to give the check on h2, but still king keeps on contact with the bishop. Queen is pressing this other bishop. If bishop c6, he will just pick up f5 and this pawn is also weak later. Also now the king is very weak and it can be subject to attack. The other way to take the pawn instead of the bishop, to take with the queen. White will still do the same, rook to d1, just to attack both bishops. And now black has to play rook c6. He's still not losing the material, but he has to be extremely careful now because his pieces are very tangled and it's really not easy to to put them back into play. White has a very powerful g4, in my opinion, which kind of breaks this structure down. And for example, just here, if you want to prepare to move this bishop, you need to move this bishop. So if you play something like bishop e6, white has a very annoying bishop e8. So it's really, the position is not weaker for black, but it's also difficult to play and really prone to errors. So it's best to avoid this. And Magnus did exactly that. So he didn't. He was not greedy to take this pawn immediately. He played queen c5, which is a very good move. So at the moment the file is still closed and the pawn is still hanging, so he'll try to take it at some other more convenient moment. White plays c3. The computer does not like this move, but actually I think it's probably the only chance for white to create some counterplay. He wants to give this check. Again, the computer is protesting the move, but I think this is in the practical sense the best possible move. You want to offer the exchange of the queens, which is not acceptable for white, of course. He's already material down, and you will use this chance to improve your pieces. You don't care if white takes the pawn. I really like this move, queen e6, so he transferred the queen from it was on c5 to e6, protecting the f5 pawn, protecting this bishop, and still threatening to take on d6. Meanwhile, he has this passed pawn, which can be very dangerous. And now white took on a6, which was a mistake because this queen will kind of remain isolated for the rest of the game. He had a really good practical chance here. That was to play rook e4. Kind of a shocking move, but let's show what would happen if you take with the queen. The queen takes the bishop on d7, so it's kind of white gave the exchange back in order to create his own dangerous passed pawn. So now while you move the rook somewhere, the queen will also move and just push the pawn ahead. So it will be a race of the pawns. This is not something that black should allow himself. So here probably the best would be take like this with the pawn. White still has this tactical opportunity to win the piece back. But in the meantime, we eliminated this passed pawn on d6, so this is the better version of the position for black. No passed pawn. The ending is with the opposite colored bishops, but as long as the rooks are on the board, black has clear advantage. So black should keep the rooks on the board in order to convert this position. Now rook c5 is a very good move. It's pressing a5 pawn, and it's also taking away some squares from the white bishop so that he cannot attack this pawn that is kind of weak. But unfortunately for white, he missed this opportunity to take on e4. Instead, he took on a6. And now I would say it's practically, the position is already lost. He can no longer save the game. Now this bishop is threatening this cover check. So queen has to move. But this pawn is already on c2, threatening the promotion. This is excellent move because it's not only covering the promotion square, it also takes away e3. We will see later. Why is this important? Because after rook b8, the queen is kind of trapped on a7, and it has no squares, and it's also blocking its own pawn. And now, of course, queen d6, which takes away c5 and d4 from the queen. Very nice maneuver by Magnus to capture the opponent's queen like this. And now he will just simply improve his pieces until it's time for the promotion. Here, White just lost his nerves and played rook c1. He was also in some kind of time travel under a minute. It's too late, you cannot really promote on time. And after queen c1, they reached the time control. This was move 40, and White realized that he is too slow. He cannot really do much if he tries to play like this to promote his own queen. He will quickly get checkmate. And this is the checkmate. Okay, thank you everyone for following this game, and hope to see you soon with new videos on the Chess Club Pobednik YouTube channel.